Hey everybody, it's Mr. Schwartz here. I'm back with another how to draw video, and as you can see, today we are doing the video game legend himself, the man of megabusting, Megaman. Meet me on the other side of this scene transition and we'll get ourselves started. Oh, and by the way, just by the by, I am recovering from a cold right now, so if I seem strangely voiced, that is the reason why. Now, moving on. Alright everybody, so to go ahead and get ourselves started, we're going to be doing a bit of advanced planning right here. So what I'd like you to do is, near the top of the page, around about here, we're going to draw a simple measurement line. This is much like what we did with the Iron Giant. I'd like you to do the same close to the bottom of the paper. So what we've done here is we've given ourselves a basic outline for how tall Megaman is going to be from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet down at the bottom. So now what we're going to do is we're going to give ourselves some more measurement lines down in this area to help us place where the parts of his body are going to be. So what I'd like you to do is from the top here, come down a fair distance, I'd say about a quarter of the way down the page, and we're going to make another guiding line right here. So from this distance here to this distance is going to be the actual size of Megaman's head. And now what I'd like you to do is we're going to take the measurement between this line and this line here. And an easy way to do that is to grab yourself a flat-ended pencil or any kind of utensil for that matter. And we're going to measure the distance just by doing something much like this. And then we're going to take that measurement, put it so that my thumb is right on where this line is, and we're going to mark where the pencil ends, making another measurement straight across. So what that does is now we have two sections of relatively equal length. And we're going to do this one more time by moving down once again. Now we have three, and then just to make sure down here, alright, you can see by me moving it down that my initial measurement was a bit too far down, so I'm going to measure it exactly. So now you can see that on my paper, I have four sections of equal size all the way down the paper. And yours may be larger or smaller than mine, but essentially all you need to do is make sure that you are able to fit four sections on the page that are of equal length. If they go off the page, then you need to shrink down your measurement a little bit, because everything needs to fit on the page. And now here's the first part of the video where a little bit of time-lapse is going to be going into this. Essentially what I'm going to do is, in time-lapse, I'm going to draw out the basic frame for Megaman's body, and then I'm going to come back to you when I'm finished, and I'm going to talk through exactly what I did and where the measurements need to be. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm back, and so let's just talk through briefly what's going on here. So as I said before, from this space up here to the space right below it, this whole area is going to be Megaman's head. Now again, this is just a circle to get us started. We are going to be coming back in here and shifting the form of that a little bit later on, but his entire head should be this size. And as you can see down here, there is a little bit different stuff going on with his extremities. That being that his chest and abdomen region are far smaller than one would normally think. That's because the average person would actually be around 7 heads tall as opposed to 4 heads tall like Megaman is. Megaman is actually drawn in a style known as chibi style, wherein certain parts of the body are shrunk or enlarged in order to enhance usually the cute factor of it. In Megaman's case, his head and his feet and his hands are going to be super deformed as opposed to his body, which is going to be relatively small by comparison. So as you can see right here, in this second section is going to be the majority of his upper and lower body. His lower body is going to extend just slightly below this line that we have here, so only a little bit, because most of this part should be taken up with his legs, specifically the upper thigh, going down to the longer shins at the bottom, because his boots are actually quite large and they take up the majority of his body. You can also see in this section here at about midway is where the elbow joints are going to be for both arms. And there, I do have them arranged in a distinct way as opposed to just straight up and down. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to just look at this, and you can pause at any time, of course. And in a few moments, we're going to move on to actually building up Mega Man, starting with his head. Okay, so I've gone ahead and zoomed inside to the head, and now let's add in his features. So what I'm going to do first is the thing that I usually do, which is I'm going to draw a line right down the middle of the head to show the split in the middle of the head. And I'm also going to draw another dividing line to divide it into 4 roughly equal sections. Then not to be perfect, just to give us a general idea of where we need to place the features. Now what we're actually going to do first is draw Mega Man's eyes, and this can be a little tricky because his eyes are what are called manga eyes, where it's a style that originally came from Japan, and the way that they do things is a little bit more simplified and a lot more expressive. So his eyes are actually going to be quite large. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually block out the general area that the eyes are going to be in. So what I'd like you to do is roughly right above, a short ways above the first eye line that we drew, we're going to draw another guiding line across, and we're going to move from this center line down to about halfway between here and here, and we're going to draw another guiding line. So from here to here is going to be Mega Man's eyes. His eyes will take up a lot of his face. He is very expressive. Now before we go ahead and put in the eyes, I'm going to actually draw in the sides of the face as well, because the sides of the circle we have now is actually going to be the sides of his helmet. His head is a little bit smaller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right down here to this line that will become his chin, and I'm going to start arching a line a fair ways up until I reach about here on both sides. And moving right along, you can see that I don't hit the edge of the helmet. I leave a fair amount of space on both sides. And now I'm going to come to this line, excuse me, and I'm going to bring a line up, up, and up until it reaches this line right up here where is going to be the top of his eyes. We'll do that on both sides, and you do want to try and make sure that it doesn't arch too far out to the sides. It should go fairly straight up. You'll notice also that when I did this line, I'm going to do the same thing over here. I did bulge it out slightly at the bottom before I brought it back in. This is to give us Mega Man's cheekbones, basically. And while you're fixing that up, I'm going to fix mine up a little bit. So both sides should look roughly like I do here. Now that we got Mega Man's actual sides of his head in, now we're going to do his eyes. We'll block them in. So what I'd like you to do is, from the middle here, we're going to come approximately this far out to the sides, and we'll make a line here, and we'll make a line here. So 2 marks, both with about an equal amount of distance between them and the edge of the face or the middle of the face, depending on where you're at. Now, to make it simple for us, we're going to block in a basic shape for his eye by simply making a line that arches slightly towards the middle of the face until it reaches the top line up here, at which point it will start to curve around, and it's going to curve out this side before it comes back in to meet that line. So we're going to end up with a shape that looks like this, and we're going to mimic it on the other side. I'll just quickly drop that in there. So again, arching towards the middle before it comes out and bulges around, extends off to the side before curving back in. So you want to try and make sure that they both have roughly the same shape to them. I notice that mine do not, so I'm going to take a little bit of time here and correct them. Alright, so there we go. That's basically what you should have at this point. And now we're going to finish off by drawing the bottom of the eye. And so to do that, we're going to come right down to this corner here, and we're going to draw a line that arches slightly downwards. It's not going to touch this point, it's going to go down below it on both sides. So there we go. And now we're going to actually draw Megaman's pupils. Now once again, this is a manga style, and the way that they do pupils, usually on chibi style, is they'll have basically loops for the eyes. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the inside of the shape. We're going to draw a line that starts to go down, and it goes just below halfway on the actual eye line here, before it curves around in a tight loop and goes back up to the top of the eye. So you'll have a loop that goes down and around about like this. And I'm going to do it on the other side now as well, trying to make both of them about the same size. Now to finish off the eyes here, we can actually come in with the eraser, and we're going to take out this line right here. That was just to help us with drawing the shape of the eye, but we don't actually need it for Megaman's eye, because this is also another mark of manga and chibi style, wherein they will have eyes that do not necessarily finish. No part of the eye will necessarily touch the rest of the eye. Sometimes they'll just have wide open spaces like this that will then be fixed via coloring or inking or things of that sort. And now we're going to finish up the eyes by adding in the shading. And this is another manga thing, you'll hear me say that a lot. But we'll have a couple little patches, a loop up here, and a patch down there, which will basically be the light. So if we shade in the area around those, you can start to see the character that Megaman has going for him. Now we would draw eyebrows on Megaman, but Megaman actually has a helmet that's going to be taking over the majority of his face up here. So we're going to finish off down here first, and then we'll draw in that huge helmet. So what we're going to do to keep this real simple is we're actually just going to lightly erase out that middle line so we can just barely see it. And slightly below where the bottom line for the eye is, we can just draw a little check mark shape to be his nose. Again, attributing to the manga style, you'll find that most features on the face are very simplified. The nose is simply a little mark on the face, and once I finish up this eye, you'll see that the mouth is actually just going to be a curve like this to give him a little sort of a determined expression. And then for lips, it is as simple as just coming under this line and adding another little dimple mark. So to finish off all of Megaman up here then, we now need to make his helmet. And his helmet is actually going to be very simple because the top of the helmet is the top of this circle that we have here. So the tricky part then is going to be drawing the circular shape around his head. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to come slightly above, on this middle line here, slightly above where the eyes are. And we're going to start drawing an arch that extends out from that point, equal on both sides. So it looks like he's angry right now, but you can see that as I curve it around, I'm going to curve it so that it meets the head. And then when it meets the head about right here, the arch is going to continue down until it should curve back into the head at about this point here. I can share that in for you. Give you a second to see that. And now I'm going to also do it on the other side. And now what we can also do, now that you're finished with that, is we can come up on this line again, and as we reach about the point where it hits the middle of the eye pupils that we drew, we can start having it arch outwards and just basically make a second loop that's much the same as this one. It's going to travel around and end at about where that one did. What this will do is this will give us the indication that Mega Man's helmet is in fact three-dimensional, and so it has space inside of it. Just cleaning everything up a little bit. And I'll draw the second one over here. Again, the key is just to try and make it similar on both sides. Now for the rest of his helmet shape, we're going to come right up here to the very top in the middle, and we're going to start curving a line that is basically going to follow that circle that we've made so far. So now no real adjustment is needed there until we reach about here, in which case it's going to curve down into the helmet. Now I'm noticing honestly that on mine, this part is looking a little bit too flat up here. Yours might not, but I'm going to make that curve a little bit more of a gentle one. And not quite so massive, not quite so steep on the top here. You can see what I mean if I go ahead and erase this out here. You can see that does help it out a little bit. Now I'm going to do the same line over on this side. Now I got the basic helmet done. I can come here and erase out the rest of that circle that I no longer need. Now there's a few more details on Mega Man that we do need to finish up. Number one is right underneath here. We're going to draw his earpieces, which is basically just another curving shape that will start here and end here on both sides. And the last thing now that we're going to need is Mega Man does have a few details on his helmet, which is simply drawing a square right in the middle of his forehead, and another that will go over the top of his helmet, slightly like so. And there we have it. We have Mega Man's head all finished. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to come down to the rest of his body, and we're going to do that part next. Alright, so moving on now to the torso of Mega Man. We're going to start by adding in the basic shape for the body up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to either side of the neck, a fair distance apart, and draw two lines for Mega Man's neck. It shouldn't go all the way to the shoulder blades. There should be a little space between the both of them. I'm going to draw a line here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this side of the neck, and I'm going to draw a shape that arches downwards like so. And once I reach down here, I'm going to make sure this shape is on level with the shape that I already drew. So instead of drawing a straight up and down line, we did curve it out to the side, so it looks like he's sticking his chest out a little bit. He's very heroic in this pose that we're drawing him in. And now from over on this side, I'm actually going to draw a line that goes out to about where this ball joint is for his shoulder. And I'm going to draw a line then that goes straight down until it reaches about midway on this arm line here. And then it's going to need to join back up with this shape here via another arch. So again, this shape that I drew initially is too small. So I'm going to just come to the side and make sure they meet where they're supposed to. So essentially what we've got here is after that line is all drawn and we can erase out this middle line, we have Mega Man's torso region and his waist region right down here. Now can come the tricky part. We need to draw Mega Man's arms and his hands. So they actually are not as difficult as you might be thinking because, again, manga style, especially chibi style, is very fond of taking these shapes and making them very angular and simple. So from this point, I'm actually just going to draw a simple sort of tube for the arm that goes down to right where this joint is, and then it's going to have a slight arch like so. It's not going to be straight across, it's going to be a slight upward arch. And then you see where this point goes from straight to arching. That's actually where the arm is going to start at the bottom. So that helps us out, gives us a good guiding point. And then from here, I'll just bring that in slightly into the body. So you can see if I erase it, that forms Mega Man's arm. See, not too complicated. And then what we're going to do now is I'm going to draw another shape like this, which basically just makes a little parting section in Mega Man's armor. Just a little, basically kind of like a stripe. And now, this part can be a little bit trickier, but essentially we're going to be drawing two shapes here. A shape for the forearm and a shape for the hand. Now the shape for the forearm, instead of a stick here, Mega Man actually has quite large forearms, almost Popeye forearms if that helps you out. So instead of a stick, we can actually draw a teardrop shape or pear, whichever one you care to call it. It should be fairly large, about this size compared to his body. Now if you draw yours smaller or larger, there's no real way to say that looks wrong because everyone draws chibi style a little bit differently, but most of the time they'll look just fine as long as you don't completely over exaggerate things. Now for the actual hand shape, you can see that I had drawn a hand here, so I need to draw a different hand shape for the actual hand. That was just to give me an idea of where it was going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up onto this pear shape that I have, starting about here. I'll draw that line for you. We're going to draw a shape that extends into this leg region before going straight down. And for me, it's going to start curving back into a curving shape around where I drew the joint for the knee. It's going to go back around the body, and it's going to meet back up right where we started. So you can see that by doing that, Mega Man has a huge fist and giant forearms. He's a very anime character with the way that we're drawing him. We're going to draw the other arm here the same way. The only difference is we're not going to see nearly as much of this arm as we do here because Mega Man has turned his torso that way, so it's a little bit off to the side from us. So I'm going to draw a slanting line that slants a little bit downwards so it doesn't cover the entire ball joint. And it's not going to go out too far from the body either. It's only going to go out to about here, which if you compare it to the neck, it's going to be about here. And then I'm going to draw another stick straight down until I reach this elbow joint, in which case I'm going to, just like over here, draw another stripe. And while you're doing that, I'll give you time to do that while I clean up this a little bit. There we go. And then we only need to really draw one side of this arm because this other side of the arm is basically going to be hidden behind his body. So we'll draw this side of the pear or teardrop. And then this side of the hand. And essentially that is all I need to draw for that at this point. because I don't need to draw the rest of this hand because it's going to be hidden behind the leg that we'll be drawing here very, very soon. So again, it looks like he has massive arms, and if this does bother you, you can, of course, change it if you wish. You can make it so that they don't extend out quite as far. That's fine. If you don't want Mega Man to have giant fists like this, you can always make them smaller. Just use my teaching as a jumping off point for your own creativity to take hold. Don't feel like you have to draw everything the exact same way I do. So for example, I'm going to change this midsection to go a little bit further up on his body. I think that makes mine look a little bit better. But of course, you don't have to. That's just something that I do. You know by now that I sketch and correct things quite a bit. I rarely ever keep the very first lines that I draw. Some people can when they're drawing and doing tutorial videos, and that's great, but I just can't. So to finish up right up here, I'm going to erase the line that was underneath his neck and redefine the chin that I erased. And then right up here, in this region, I'm going to erase out the top of that shape so that his chest stops here, which is about where his shoulder would begin. And now that we've gotten that taken care of, let's come down to his midsection. So, right here we had drawn before the two ball joints that connect up into the body, and we're going to use those as a reference point. So just like up here when I drew these stripes, I'm going to draw a slanting up shape that starts at the edge where the ball joint starts. So we're going to have a little bit of space left in the middle here between this shape and this shape. I'm then going to draw another slanting up shape right here that will end at the same point that I had before. So Mega Man's legs are going to be entering his body at a slant. They're not going to enter flat. They're going to enter diagonally. Again, apologies for my voice. I am recovering from a cold currently. I believe I said that already, but it bears repeating nonetheless in case you somehow just skipped to this point in the video and you're confused as to why I sound very strange. Now that basically takes care of this area. So what we're going to do now is just like with the upper arms here and here, from here until the knee joint there, we're just going to draw a stick. Now this stick does follow the same diagonal path that the leg does, so it's not going to go straight down. It will go at an angle. And you can see it's going to disappear behind the fist, and that's essentially right where I want it to be. We'll do the same over on this one, starting on the outside here. This one will go straight down. This sort of helps give him a dynamic pose as opposed to both legs just being straight up and down. This makes him look more visually interesting. Now you can see that I'm going to stop above the ball joint on this side. And also, since this leg is curved away from us, the back of the leg is actually going to be slightly back this way. So from the joint, it's actually going to be over here. Now, right here, I'm going to draw this leg because it will help you out because we're not going to be able to see all of the leg over here. I'm going to draw another stripe, just like I did up there. Now, here's an interesting thing about Mega Man's legs, shins, and boots. These parts are going to be big, very big. He has extremely exaggerated foot size. So what we're going to do is we're going to come right up here to where that stripe started. We're going to draw a line that goes out into the fist, about this far, and then it's going to curve down quite a ways until it reaches a little under halfway that you can't even see. Let me move the camera down slightly. There we are. I have found it generally helps people to learn how to draw if they can see what I'm doing. So a little bit below halfway between this space and this space for the shin region of his boot. And then we're going to come back here and we're going to draw a shape that goes basically straight down until it reaches a little bit below here. So they stop at different angles. And now before we finish here, I'm going to come back up here, slightly erase this stuff out here, and from this point on the boot, I'm going to draw a shape that curves down instead of going straight across to finish off that part of his boot. I'll clean this up. And now, once we reach about this point, now we're going to finish off with the foot section, which is quite simple. It's just a slight curve down to slightly below this line here before it goes all the way back to where this line is. And then from here, we're going to have a slightly angled out shape that will meet it. And we also don't want to have too much of a point down here. Now you can see it better. We don't want to have too much of a slant down here. We want it to be more curved. So you can see, Mega Man does have quite a massive boot. And his other one is going to be even larger because this boot is actually turned away from us. The other one is going to be looking right at us. So before we do that one, there's a couple details we can put in here to make it look more like Mega Man's actual boot, which is very simple, just coming up to this point where these two areas intersect and drawing a curve here and a curve right above it to show the crinkle in Mega Man's boot, which is odd because they do draw it like this, but his armor is supposed to be made of metal. So why it crinkles like that, I really don't know. It's a video game thing. So moving over to this side, you can see that I've actually gone ahead and just erased out the part of the fist that enters into the leg. So I'm going to draw the entirety of the leg so that you are able to see what's going on, and then you can adjust it to however much of the leg is visible beneath your Mega Man fist. So at the same point where this one entered into a stripe, we're going to do the same over here, but this one is going to be still at an angle. The bar is actually going to curve like so. And now for this curve down here, we're actually going to draw the boot, much like we did there, but since this boot is looking at us, it's facing towards us as opposed to off to the side, this point is actually going to be in the middle of the boot. So it's going to curve on both sides, like this. And then it curves, and it's going to curve and curve and curve some more until it almost hits this boot, but don't let it hit the boot. It's going to get very close, but then it will stop. So I'll just clean that up so you can see how that curve works. And we'll do the same over on this boot. We're going to have it curve out and curve out and curve out until on this one, both sides are going to end at about the same point, that being where this point ended over here. And then what we're going to do is to make the foot look like it's pointing towards us. It can be complicated at first, but essentially you're going to start here and here, and you're going to make an angle, make a line that angles out until it hits this line here. Does the same on the other side, angles out, and then it's going to curve around the foot at about an equal curve. So it's going to bend down in the middle. I'm going to make mine bend a little bit more. And it's going to come back up and meet. So there is what Mega Man's boot should look like. I can add the same details over here that I did there, just by coming into the middle of it and doing a couple little curves like that. And now, while you're fixing up this, I'm just going to quickly draw back in Mega Man's fist up here. So ladies and gentlemen, we are almost finished. There's just 3 more things to do. Number 1, we're going to divide this into fingers, which is, again, very, very simple. All you do is you're going to come about here. So if you just took the line the angle that was formed between where this point divided to here, we're going to come down and draw a line that goes down and then back into the form. So by doing that, we have divided into a thumb, and the rest are just fingers. And since Mega Man has his fist pointed away from us, we don't need to draw in any sort of finger details there. We can do the same over on this hand, by simply coming inside this shape here and drawing a line much like this. So again, since that fist is actually like this to us, all we really need to show is the line for the thumb. So to finish off Mega Man, we're going to give him his collar, which to do so, we're going to come right here to the neckline, go and draw a line across, and so we have space up here to draw a slight protrusion that then curves down into the body a ways before it curves back up and meets the neckline that we had before. So I'm going to now clean this up a little bit more. I see some smears, and then we're going to wrap it all up. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Mega Man is all done, and he's looking ready to do some mega busting. I hope you enjoyed this little drawing tutorial. I hope it helped you out in some way. And thank you for watching. This has been Mr. Schwartz with Mr. Schwartz's Art Hour, and I will see you all next time. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day.